So Minion and I would talk. This podcast turned into us having conversations, into us making it a podcast. And that's not worked out in the obvious way. And because there's some stuff that we would talk about in real life that we wouldn't talk about in a podcast, because it's not global, for example, or or for various local people in various places at various times, talking about certain issues, certain topics can be too sensitive, or sometimes you don't pick the right words and things aren't conveyed very well. So it can be upsetting. Now, if we're doing that in real life around the kitchen, we're cooking or something like that, and we happen to be there, we'll have another opportunity to clarify things later, the next day. But in the context of something like a podcast, you talk about certain things in certain ways, kind of like, and it's unscripted, right? If you're unscripted and you say things in a way that maybe you don't even believe because you're tinkering with some perspective, or you say it in a way that's kind of wrong, and maybe you know it at the time, you're still exploring it as you're talking. Well, that's enough to offend or whatever a potential listener, a potential long-term listener, and just have them leave and never come back again. And that doesn't happen. Well, that doesn't happen in my life in the real world. That might happen like for lesser people who don't have reasonable people around them. They might actually say the wrong things and lose a friend, which it makes absolutely no sense to me because I'm from a totally alien. I'm a time traveler from decades ago, and this current world makes no sense. But in the real world, you're supposed to have multiple opportunities to maybe even talk about the exact same issue. And if you're friends, that doesn't, like, you view the world differently because you're different people, and it's okay. And it's not necessarily about trying to antagonize for fun. Certainly you wouldn't do that, but it's not about continuing to convert the people you know to the perspectives you have. It's just like you have an interesting thing to talk about, and whenever something like that, you like leap on every opportunity to talk about a certain issue that you're passionate about. So you'll have that one vegan friend, right? And so every time, well, right there's the joke that vegans will constantly bring that stuff up. That's actually not true. But if in a group of friends certain things get brought up, you can like turn to that friend like, hey, well, what do you think about this? And you'll get a specialist, an opinion. You'll get somebody who cares about a particular perspective, but that can be slightly offensive or inarticulate or whatever. And then you can just bring it up next time and next time. And it might turn into an argument, like a heated argument. But let a week pass, let a month pass, bring up Christmas once a year, and you have that challenging, like, well, you're an atheist, you shouldn't say Christmas. That's wrong and you can have that like over the holidays every single year. And it doesn't mean anything come spring, right? It doesn't mean anything throughout the rest of the year, and you're still friends and you still, right? So that's the kind of world that I have lived in. And I wouldn't want to have like a show that has that, like that Christmas antagonism. If we had a Christmas special and we started talking about these topics, and I've got a lot there because this is what YouTube used to be in like 2003. And there was a lot of these kinds of conversations. And, but if you were to do that in a podcast context, then people listen to 5 minutes of that and go, you're wrong, and then leave because there is so much, let's call it choice, right? There's so many alternatives out there that if your fidelity isn't high enough and you're too antagonistic, like you're too prickly, then there's too many people that will come over, take a peek, get stuck, run away, or just bounce off, or whatever the heck.